Hey there guys, how you doing? This is Ice9 and we're going to be covering Gauntlet today, and I think that my opinion pretty much represents most people that I've run across either in my league chat or on Mutthead or in the DEA chat. Um, Not hearing a lot of positive things about it. When I got up this morning, I want to thank EA first of all. Gotta thank EA for this one, because this morning when I saw the positional heroes, I was like, cool, they're 99s. I don't think I won either of them, but they're 99 players. And then I looked at Gauntlet, and I looked at the master player, and I looked at the sets, and I looked at the whole promo. I made the decision to go back to bed. And, I want to thank EA because I needed the extra sleep. I really, really did need that sleep. So I do appreciate it. Anyways, though, on to this Gauntlet thing. And we're going to talk about a number of different things. And I do believe, while you could definitely pick up the negativity in what I said there at the beginning, here, what we're going to do here now. Congrats to Philip Jackson, I should say, our new league championship, and we're going to start one right now. All Madden settings, 24 hours. There we go. So we got that done and out of the way. Not going to do any gameplay for this, though. Got truth for my first round here. Not going to do any gameplay. I'm going to talk about the games and the promos, but, even though I had that little bit of thinly veiled negativity in there to start the video, I do think that it's important to balance it, because EA has done a lot of good things this year. The game has obviously been much different from year to year in a lot of ways. In some ways, it's very much the same, unfortunately. That's just kind of the limitations of a mobile video game and the limitations of a company like EA doing a mobile video game, I guess. Not to say anything bad about them, but it's just kind of their business model. It is what it is. But first thing we're going to talk about here is rankings and league rankings and how things work. And it's important to talk about this because it is a positive thing, and it's a recent thing that has happened. And when a promo like Gauntlet comes out, and I think it's a total flop right now, I think it's important too to bring out the good points and the good things that EA has done. And of course, cheating has always been a factor in this game. I've been playing multiplayer games, mostly shooters. Quake 2, Quake 3, COD 4 are the majority of what I've played for online, so shooter games. But in those games, cheating was a problem too, and in Madden Mobile, there is certainly is not an exception to that rule that there are cheaters. Last year, it was really, really bad. They had fixed force closing to an extent. In other words, force closing was something where if a player threw a pick in year one, 2015 year, if a player threw a pick, if he force closed out of the app before that player could be tackled and the play ended, he basically got the play over. Last year, that was changed to where if somebody disconnected in the middle of a play, it was called a no play or a turnover, and the player lost the drive. So, that was kind of a cool thing that they did. However, another thing that cheating leagues were doing at that time was basically using airplane mode to cheat. So this is taking your drives offline to an extent, so you're not updating the server. You're only updating the server at the end when you've put in a successful drive. If you messed up in the course of a drive, no problem, just redo it. And that's what players were doing. You could always see this because you would see, if you were following in a league to league, somebody playing against you, you could see that somebody took a drive, maybe even took a kickoff on the film, but then there was nothing for several minutes, sometimes, half an hour, depending on what somebody was doing. So, they were basically doing the drives till they got it right. And instead of seeing every play as it rolled out real time, you would see the whole thing spit out at the end. And usually, of course, it'd be 8 points on that drive. So that was something that was happening last year. It's a difficult thing to combat in a way. And as well as that, there were other cheats, basically hacking the game and doing things like points glitches, so teams giving themselves a bunch of points using exploits of the game, and also reducing the difficulty of the defense that they're playing. For example, to the point where somebody could run off 3 kickoffs for a touchdown. That was a surefire, not a subtle way of seeing that somebody was cheating. Or, they would just make it really easy and, the defense wouldn't make any plays or force any turnovers. Basically like playing a scrimmage event or something like that. Really, really easy. So, that was something that they did. And they were doing that to an extent this year, too. EA kind of shut that down a little bit. They've made tweaks in gameplay here and there. In the Hall of Fame and in all game modes, they made it easier to throw long. Now with the latest update, at least in League to League, it's harder to throw long. And in head-to-head, as defenders have gotten better, it's harder to throw long as well. But, they've made adjustments here and there to try to enhance gameplay and, make it a little bit more fair, I guess you would say. So now, though, the cheating leagues, and I can't take any credit for that. I've been in the DEA chat, basically since it began last spring. And I know guys in there have worked really hard communicating with EA what leagues and players were cheating, what cheats they were doing, their methods and things that they were doing, and trying to stop it. And those guys have done a great job, and EA has listened. And I think a big catalyst to this was last year's league season championship with the Barry Sanders as the grand prize, because that was kind of a fiasco. Bunches of leagues were being found out and disqualified from the tournament for cheating. And it was just, I think it was a little bit of an eye-opener to EA seeing how many people actually cheat at this game, trying to moderate and run, a tournament and seeing how much of it was going on. So I think that EA got more on it after that. So that was definitely a good thing. And EA does make attempts to clean up the game. And we see here that, most of the leagues on here now belong here. They're good leagues with good players. They've spent money with EA. They've worked really hard. The vast majority of these people have worked really hard, hundreds, thousands of hours, building a team, practicing the game, playing drives, all these types of things, playing 365 days a year. So a lot of these guys, they really, really do belong here, and it's a cool thing to see. The other reason I also have the leaderboard up is because a former member of my league from last year is on one of these teams, number 54 Tournament Assassins, and last year he played under Brad Goes Boom. Old videos last year, there's a couple drives of me playing Brad and talking about him as a player. And, I'm proud of Brad. He's playing now under Thunder Brad, and he is playing on number 54 ranked Tournament Assassins. And, this league here, pretty highly ranked, not a lot of members. They're pretty careful about who they let in and out. But Brad's one of the guys who's been on the league all year, and he's done it with a 95 overall team. And, most of the other teams in the league are better, for sure, but all the other teams are better. But Brad is on this team. He's a good player. If we look at the team here, he's got all the boosters, trying to get that defensive up, couple of silver awareness game changers, all of the quote-unquote free players, Gronk, the tier 7s, players that you could earned just in the course of playing the game. He's got some old, crusty legends on there. Then on defense, he's got Dom Von Miller, free player basically. And just kind of, mix match players in there. A few MVPs, other players. So, I mean, this is kind of an interesting thing. So this is proof to an extent that you don't have to have the best team to compete in a high level at this game, is really the message about it. Now, no doubt about it, this year overall is more important. Making coins is more important, just for game plans, because of the way that overalls affect counters, things of that nature. It all matters to an extent, more than it ever has. But here's a guy who probably hasn't spent one dime on the game, and he does pretty well at it. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. Now, EA, as we know, owns the rights to National Football League video games. Anything video game involved with the NFL, EA runs it. It's a monopoly, there's no doubt about it. And all the bad things about one company having a monopoly have come true. They're not always real responsive to the customer. There's no competition pushing them forward on this type of game because nobody has a product that rivals Madden Mobile. Certainly not for mobile devices. For console, I don't believe that there's much that competes either. One thing to keep in mind about mobile games, and I'm a PC gamer at heart. I started playing Doom shareware on a 486SX back in the early 90s. So a PC gamer is a little bit different than a console gamer in terms of mentality. Generally speaking, not always. All people are different. But for the most part, PC gamers are more associated with being loyal to a game. In other words, picking a game, trying to get better at it, getting really kind of fixated on that game and trying to get better and better and better and better. Whereas a console gamer, I've seen a lot of console gamers, some of them will stick to a game for a long time, but more common with the console gamer, you see the type of gamer that might talk up a game and be anticipating it longer than they're actually playing the game. They might talk about a game for months. Oh, I can't wait for that game to come out. And then they'll play it for 2 weeks, and then they'll be playing something else. It's just the way it goes. Whereas PC gamers, a lot of them, I'm fairly representative, I think. I played Doom, then late 90s I played Quake 2 and 3. I played Quake 3, this $50 game, seriously for 2 years, and played it a little more casually. All in all, a total of 5 years I played that game. That's pretty good for a $50 video game. That's what a bundle costs through EA, and not even one of their great bundles. But it's just to give you a little perspective and the difference in business models. Now, these days, and the reason that I play this game a lot is because it is mobile. It's a mobile game. I can take it anywhere. I can play it at work, in the bathroom, or sitting at my desk. I could, catch play a scrimmage event or a drive here and there. It's just one of those things. Your phone is always with you, so you could always play the game. And that's kind of a cool thing about mobile games, and that's why they've become so popular. It's not because of the technology of the games itself that's made it more popular. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when we're talking about PC games and, say, for example, a Bethesda game like Fallout 4, which is one of my favorite games. I don't get time to play it much anymore, and I can play this because I'm on the go. I can play Madden Mobile. Don't get a lot of time to play Fallout 4 these days, but Fallout 4 is an amazing game, but it's impossible on current phone technology. Computers and the newer consoles have just a lot more processing power, graphics capability, memory, and storage than a phone does. What you could do on a phone, you are limited for what you could do. So that is part of what EA is working with on there. That's not to excuse EA from some of the choices that they make in the game, though. And so let's get into the next part of this. Let's start talking finally about Gauntlet. And like I said, most people I think had the same kind of reaction that I did. Totally underwhelmed. Now, the live event, and that's the only way you could get the collectibles for Gauntlet, as far as right now, it's basically the M Games rushing attack with 4 defenders. It's not necessarily easy. It is a lot easier with CJ2K than it was earlier in the year. That is for sure. So if you play that, the cool thing is if you lose, you get 9 stamina back. So you get all but one of your stamina back. So it doesn't hurt too much for losing the event, which is kind of a cool thing. On the bad part, it still does take 10 stamina to do this. I've calculated with the number of players going through everything that you need, if you get no dupes with stamina refills, if you do it strictly by stamina refills, it's $25 to get the master player, assuming that you get no duplicates, which is not going to happen. How many duplicates you get, I don't know. But here, it's EA, so assume you're going to get a lot of duplicates, and some players are going to be harder to get. So let's check out this set. I've only done it once. Got 1 Gauntlet badge here, and you need 10 of them to get a Gauntlet runner, which is one of the elites. Next set is kind of a warning here, the 5 times Gauntlet badge pack. The reason why I say it's a warning is it's basically an admission that you are going to get a lot of duplicates. If you do get duplicates, since you cannot auction the player or the collectibles or any part of this promo, none of it, as far as I know, is auctionable. I know the master players not auctionable. I assume the collectibles are not auctionable. I haven't unlocked a player, so I assume they are not auctionable as well. So this is something every player has to do for himself or herself. You can't make coins off the promo per se. It's only going to cost you money and stamina. There's no way of really profiting or trying to get ahead by going to other sets. You can't do the whole thing and then sell the master player and make coins off of that if you don't want the master player. There's no way to do any of that. So, part of this, again, EA is trying to take coins out of the marketplace, and by not having a promo where all the pieces are splashing around the marketplace, bringing a bunch of coins, giving ability for people to make coins, it kind of lowers values again. Another thing that goes into that is the boost in the player itself, which is not going to necessarily help the in-game economy, which is frustrating. But the thing about it, in the way they're doing it, is, this is EA, okay? And I know, I'm well aware of EA and their business model and how they work. They want to make money. There's no doubt about that. They are probably one of the greedier companies, I think, being kind to them, that are out there making video games right now. There's no doubt about it. They try to make as much money as possible, and they really, really do work the consumer a lot. In the case of Madden Mobile, having played all 3 years, what I would say is they have made it more difficult on the player every single year that this game has come out. It has become more and more difficult. Yes, there's been things in the economy that the players are doing themselves to mess it up, buying coins, selling coins, glitches that have happened over time. These have all messed up the economy, but the number one killer of the economy this year, well, first of all, it's just natural. It's this part of the year where the economy gets tougher and tougher, but number one killer of the economy this year is EA itself. More and more promos that are with unauctionable parts, so people can't make money off the parts if they don't want to do the whole set. You don't have that kind of transfer of coins around, splashing things around. And then we have a master player, which I'm personally not interested at all. But basically, okay, so the 5 times pack, what that means is if you get a duplicate, and if it's anything like domination in the past, you could get a lot of duplicates. You will get half of your badges that took to make that player back, to put into a new player. Thanks for playing. Thank you very much, guys. All right, so now we're going to get into Edelman and the set. And we have 10 unique players that we need for these sets. And one of the things about this, for people who are familiar with EA and how these games and these types of promos have worked, I should say, is that some of these players will probably be harder to get for whatever reason than others. Could be 2 or 3 players and one that could be really, really rare. For example, it's fully possible that doing the 10 collectible set for the Gauntlet runner could be a 1 in 30 chance, or maybe even greater odds than that, of pulling Chris Harris Jr., just as an example. That's fully possible. That makes it a hard set to do, and that makes it a lot more than $25 of stamina refills to do. That, combined with the fact of how late the set's coming out, it's not that much later than last year, but it's definitely more difficult than the sets last year. For Gauntlet. So that means that for somebody not doing stamina refills, it's going to be tough to get him, I think, by the end of the year, unless you really, really focus on this set. Now let's look at the player in general. And this is the worst part of it. And this could have been an easy decision for EA to make that could have totally turned this promo around and totally changed people's expectations and made people a lot happier with the promo. First thing I saw when I decided to go back to sleep this morning was the +5 catch boost. I saw that and I saw Edelman and I kind of looked at the stats and I was like, are you kidding? And I went right back to sleep is what I did. Just passed out. It's ridiculous. I mean, this boost right here, I mean, all players, you have to keep in mind that, there's always a nerf on. So when you're playing a better team, a lot of times your players will play better and your opponent might play worse. That is something that has been in the game every year. Although this year it's a little bit less, and we're going to talk about that. But a catch boost is one of those things. It might boost overall. But for anybody who has Gronk, which I've had Mobile Master Gronk since early October, and I know a lot of people have had him, a long, long time, the boost is kind of redundant. Okay, so +5 catch boost, it might help, secondary, and it might help your running back who may not have that great a catch. Like I got CJ2K catches in the 80s, so it might help with that, a little bit. But overall, it's not going to be a big impact type of boost. The most obvious boost that they could have put on this card, in my opinion, is speed. If this card had +2 speed, +2 catch, +2 speed, +2 awareness, +2 speed, +2 agility, +2 speed, nothing else with it, it would have made me spend money on the promo and everybody would have gotten on this promo. So this is a curious thing. EA has to know this. That, wow, if we put a speed booster by this time of the year, considering how difficult speed boosters have been to get for the majority of people this year, this is something where everybody could have it, and they've got a speed booster on their team, and they didn't have to buy coins, and they didn't have to, work the auction house. They could have spent money, and with EA, which a lot of people would have spent money, and, try to get this player, but they didn't do it. They didn't give it a speed boost. They didn't even give it, I don't know, an agility boost would have been better than this. +2 agility, I would argue, is better boost than this. It's just a terrible, unimaginative type of thing. Not very well thought out. And knowing EA, it's curious because, I'm well aware with their business model. They try to hit people up, they work people hard. To be a fan of an EA game and be playing my third year Madden Mobile, I know that me and other people who like this game and play this game, you have to be a little bit of a masochist just because the way EA does things. Strictly because of that, you have to be a glutton for punishment. There's just no way around it. And this card is just the best example I've ever seen of that from EA. So people have been looking forward to this promo. It's been slow. There hasn't been much going on besides positional heroes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But now they come out with this card. So the boost isn't really good. The speed boost would have helped everything. It would have helped the average player get a speed boost, which they deserve. The average player deserves to have at least one. EA is like split, it seems to me, between trying their greed and trying to make money on the game and hit their customers up for every possible dollar that they can, with trying to balance the game. And the whole thing doesn't work. And I'll tell you why. Not giving us a speed booster or having one of the most recent throwbacks have a speed booster and having all these different things right now really affects things. Speed is obviously a huge boost. It's probably the most important boost in the game. It affects both offense and defense. Teams play totally different with speed boosters on there. It's really observable, unlike a catch boost where, it's arguable, especially on high levels, of how much of an impact it's going to make. I think that last year when I got flashback Andre Johnson, I was like, my team is catching it a little bit better with that +1 catch. But then when you kind of think about it, it's like, it's a total placebo effect. It's not really observable. A player having 99 catch doesn't mean they're going to catch the ball 99% of the time, as we know. It means that they catch the ball better than 99% of the players in this game at their position, according to EA. In other words, it doesn't mean anything. They're either going to catch the ball or not. You're either going to get nerfed or not. You're going to get countered or not. Those types of things. It's not a surefire thing as well. So might help some players hold on to the ball a little bit better, but it's not a game-changing type of thing as +2 speed would have been. Now, the thing with speed boosters, it's like, okay, EA's like, all right, we're going to try to keep it fair for everybody. All right, we don't want there to be these overpowered speed boosters. So regardless of people spending money with us or whatever, that they're not going to have this huge unfair advantage over everybody else by having speed boosters. But we've had first Game Changer Gurley, and then the impossible unicorn of a card, Allen Robinson. And both of those cards are going to lower overalls now because they're only high 80s players and not the best gameplay either. But that Robinson card, if you ever see it, brings a ton of coins just because it's impossible to pull. EA has made Game Changers so hard to do because of the way the sets work, because the limited amount of pulls that you get from the live event. Elites are just really, really hard to come by in Game Changers. So it's like, you look at EA and you're like, why do you guys hate your own promos? It seems like you guys, we just hate it. We don't like this promo. It's like a resistance type of thing. We don't want to do this promo, but what we'll do is we'll just, make the sets very, very difficult to do, and the odds of you getting anything good from the live event or anything else almost impossible. And I don't get it, because the speed boosters, and what's been a bigger problem this year than any other year, is the buying and selling of coins. Okay, so a couple months ago they had the 99 tribute Mike Vick card, plus 2 speed, plus 2 awareness. Obviously, a lot of people ripped through packs, bought coins, did whatever they could to try to get 99 Mike Vick. And of course, the chances of pulls were terrible. So only like the top players who really work the auction house really well, or who spend money buying coins in the game, were able to get that card. Then there was the CJ2K card right in the next month, the one that I've got, and same type of thing. So you have people like, Alex, who I played last night, who has plus 6 speed on his team. So if it's really in the interest of EA trying to keep it fair and keep speed boosters off teams to try to prevent giving people unfair advantages, what I would say is either do it or don't. This would be a way now that people who already had Vic and who already have CGA 2K, if there was a speed boost on this card, people would be spending more money with EA right now, and it wouldn't break the game by any means. So it's just kind of a ridiculous thing that they did that. Then going along with that, this is just the way Gauntlet is, and it's in a way a little bit bass-ackwards. Plus 2 experience when you're P50 is completely meaningless. Least EA could do for me, it seems to me, is giving me a small coin bonus, considering especially that the economy gets so hard at this time of the year. But that's whatever. So we talked a lot about the boost and why it's kind of useless, and I think most people agree about that. So if not for the boost, then a really good individual 99 player with good stats would make up for that. Well, the problem is we've had a lot of wide receivers this year. We've had them out for months. Team of the year, Julio Jones, who's still on my team. Pro Bowl, Brandon Marshall. Super Bowl, Jerry Rice. Some of the other Super Bowl players. Super Bowl Jones. All the Ultimate Legend wide receivers. We've had a bunch of great wide receivers come out in this game. There's going to be a Randy Moss card at some point as an Ultimate Legend, probably. These cards have all come out. So now we've got a 5'8 guy. So if you got a 5'8 guy, he better be fast, is what I would say. 94 speed. So the same as Pro Bowl Brandon Marshall, who came out 2 months ago. It's ridiculous. This card is absolutely a joke. And it might play better than the stats, and that's always possible. But he's 5'8", and the jump is 92. There is no flanker screen in the game this year, so the elusiveness and the strength and all those things don't particularly matter. The high carry, it doesn't matter because, can you imagine this guy going up against Marcus Peters? It's not even a matchup. So, gameplay-wise, at least if you look at the stats, the stats are going to be like, okay, if he had 99 speed, that might be a different story. Then I think a lot of people would be working harder on this set. As it is, I'm not working on the sets at all. But from what I understand, there's already feedback from EA saying, okay, we'll see what we could do to modify or make you guys happier with this. A couple things that they've done in the past. Well, 200 Madden Cash. This is a 200 Madden Cash event. If I ever did see it, it might as well be an auction house shutdown or some kind of a major glitch requiring 24-hour maintenance. This is just about as bad, this promo. So this is a 200 Madden Cash level screw up by EA, this whole promo. To put it gently, to put it kindly. That's what I think about it. But one thing that they could do year one, when there was an exploit on the Gauntlet player, who was Cam Chancellor, there was this exploit where you could substitute players and end up getting the best player at that position through a glitch. And a lot of times that was Gauntlet Chancellor, which, so there were a bunch of them out before the promo even really got going, flooded the marketplace, and really made it kind of a tough thing for people to complete. They eventually put another card with it, which I think was a 95 Byron Maxwell card with no boost. So that was just kind of a thing that they put on there. Here you go. Here's another card for actually doing the promo, which by that time the Maxwell card was useless. I just sold him off by the time I completed the whole thing. So it was kind of a joke. They responded to that last year and they made, Watt unauctionable, but not after the first day. So some people lost Watt and were never able to get him back, which is awesome by EA for doing that. But EA kind of messes things up sometimes. And this is definitely a mess up. The choice of player, the stats of the player, and the boosts are really, and the way the sets work too. There is no, as you can see, none of these three sets involve domination collectibles. So one thing that EA could do right now to try to make people a little bit happier is have a set for 2 domination collectibles and a gold trophy or something like that. For this player, it should be a silver trophy, giving one of the collectibles for the set. But even if it works that way, say if it was like last year and there was, 10 collectibles required or something like that, 10 or 20, I forgot what it was. But, I have 90 something plus domination collectibles and then give me 40 something Gauntlet collectibles. So last year I had Watt day one. With the way these sets work, I wouldn't even have them day one. I'd probably be a little bit under halfway there with, say, 96 divided by 2 is 48, which is for almost 5 of the players, assuming no duplicates, puts me just about 50% of the way there to the player. So they need to have a set like that. That's the first thing they could do. The most obvious thing they could really do is give it a better boost. Not catch. Plus 5 agility, be all right if they don't want something too overpowered. It'd be a good boost, and it would affect gameplay a little bit. Speed boost would be, I think, the most fair thing that they could do. Have a speed boost and a catch boost, or a speed boost just by itself would be enough to get people going towards the player. It would make them more money and make their customers happy. And one thing that I will say about that, I've been in sales a long time. I don't talk a lot about my job or what I do, but I'm in a sales environment. And one of the things about being in sales that you learn is try to give the customer what they want. Customer, in this case, wants a speed boost. You give it to them, give them what they want, and they will give you money. It's very simple. Make the customer happy, give them what they want, tell them this is what it's going to cost, and people will do it. But the way this set is, people aren't going to do it, and I'm no exception. So enough about Gauntlet. Let's go on to positional heroes for the week. And we've got good news and more good news. Good news for me, having Domination Gronk, is I now have another placeholder where I could put gold elite trophies and gold and elite players and store them and get them off the auction house. This is extremely good news to me that I have this kind of opportunity to put, 120 items. This is awesome. I'm not going to do this set. That's my way of joking about that. Stats are actually pretty good, but 91 speed sounds familiar. The blocking stat looks pretty close to Gronk. Everything is pretty close to Domination Gronkowski, who we have already had for how many months now? 4 months? 5 months that we've had this player? 5 months we've had this player. Now they're coming out with a player with about the same stats with no boost. But that's not to rag on EA per se. That's just, we knew the tight end was going to be a dud anyways, and now it's done and over with. So I get a week off, basically, from positional heroes and grinding towards this. That's the good news for me. I have a placeholder, I have a place to put cards, and I get a week off from this. So, and there you go. Put another one in there right now. Get him off the bench. Second player here. This is another tough one because our other free player that I've also had since early October happens to be a pass rushing linebacker, and that's what this Beasley card is too. Stats aren't bad. Coverage is a little bit better than the domination version of Von Miller. And so there's some good things about the stats on this player, but it's unboosted and doesn't have the best coverage. So you've got to play him pretty much at right outside linebacker, which is the left of your screen, the one I'm always using in pass rush when I play pinch, when I'm playing season mode. That's on the left side of the screen, and that guy needs to be more the pass rusher because he's not covering the tight end. Left outside linebacker is doing that. And so his ability, in terms of strength, speed, pass rushing, block shed, that's all more important than coverage at that particular position. Although a little bit of coverage is nice, which is why I have the Super Bowl card of Von Miller at right outside linebacker. But there's already better linebackers in the game with boosts at the position. To play him left side with 70 man and 80 zone is not even as good as the two combine linebackers, Jamie Collins and the other one. I forget his name right now, Bruce Irvin. It's not as good as those cards for coverage. So even though those cards are 98s, they're really better linebackers for covering Gronk, which is the big problem. How to shut out Gronk, which is impossible to do. But Collins is probably one of the best, or certainly one of the better players right now available to most people to do the job. And higher zone and much higher man coverage. Good stats up and out down the line, except for block shed, which is in the 70s on this card. If you don't like that, go with the Irvin card. If you play a 3-4, play the Irvin card and not maybe the Collins card is what you end up doing in that particular case. But that's a better card already. But the good thing about both of these positional heroes, and I've only really touched on it, but they're 99 players. And so that means, assumedly from here on out, we expect the positional heroes to be 99 players. If they go back to 98s for like centers and positions like that, it would really make me mad. By this point, just commit to making them 99 players. The players are pretty easy to get. They don't require the collectibles that they did last year. So this is, once again, a positive thing that EA has done, listening to the customer, even if they're a little slow sometimes. They got rid of the collectible requirement. Now you could get this just through the junk players in the game. And, the gold trophies haven't been really used in a lot of sets either all year long. So that's cool. That means, positional heroes, and they'll probably get better as time goes on. So that is kind of a cool thing. And that is basically it, guys. I'm not going to do any gameplay in this video or anything like that. Gauntlet is, at this point, a huge flop. And now we're going to wait and see what EA is going to do about it. But the one thing, that I would reinforce again to people, and, I saw this running a league. First year I didn't play league. I've mentioned that. It was strictly about working on my team. Wasn't even really competing per se. I wasn't playing much head to head. I wasn't playing in a league. So it was just all about making my team better. And as my Facebook friends, stopped playing the game and things like that, I, didn't have people to play anymore and all that type of thing. And the game got pretty stale. And this time of the year, it starts getting stale for a lot of people. The economy gets a lot tougher. Casual players are gone. The lower end items aren't worth much. The upper end items are very, very difficult to get and extremely expensive. So there's just a big, there's a big difference, between the top people who spend money on this game and the people who haven't spent money. You basically have to be a maniac at working the auction house and really be an expert at that to really get your team and keep upgrading your team as the year goes on. And at a certain point, even the people who are really good at making coins in this game, there's nothing to make coins on. And we're kind of at that point right now. There's just not a lot of surefire ways to make coins. And Gauntlet is yet another one where nothing is auctionable, not even the top player. So that is also disappointing. The whole thing is disappointing. And as far as EA goes, I know they've done a lot. They've combated cheating, they've enhanced gameplay, and my proof of this enhancing gameplay. And I love Mudhead, don't get me wrong. I like a lot of people on Mudhead, but a lot of people on Mudhead are just complainers. That's all they do is complain. It gets tiring, the same threads over and over and over again. So here's one of the threads that I've seen a lot over all 3 years that I've been playing. Why does my 104 defense not get any stops? If I spend money on this game and work really hard to put my defense together, why is a 90 offense putting up 24 points against me? Well, here you go. You have your answer. We are playing number 10 Heroic Destiny, as I covered in my video last night. This is destruction. It's annihilation. 197 points put up to their 338. The difference between the skill of the players, the quality of the teams, and game plans between these two leagues is very representative of a league that's ranked 10 as opposed to one that's ranked number 253. You could clearly see the difference between the skill levels between these two teams. Okay? And it's as clear as day now with the difference and the way it works. It's harder to score now on 103 defense. It's harder because of the counter system, and it has been all year because of both frequency counters preventing spamming and the random soft counters along with the hard counters like what we had last year. It's more difficult. Of course, the bad side is that game plan is pay to play now. So once again, you have to either be an auction house ninja or you have to be spending money on the game some way, somehow to get better defense, which is unfortunate. It should be based more on the player's effort, in my opinion. But EA has gone against that. They've gone another way. And I think it's kind of a mistake. We'll see what they do next year with it. But it has changed the dynamics of the game. Now, some of the difficulty that EA builds in the game, it's always difficult to figure out how to build in difficulty, so to speak, into a game. How to make it tougher without making it completely arbitrary and stupid. That's always a fine balance. Some of the ways EA has done it, it's not been very good. In Hall of Fame level, having guys who just can't block over and over again is frustrating. It makes you wonder why you spend money at all on the game at some points. But it is a difficult thing how to figure out how to make a game more challenging because challenge is part of the fun. And let's face it, I mean, I know there's a lot of NFL fans who have no choice but to play this game because it's the only one that represents the NFL. But once again, if you're playing an EA game, in my opinion, you got to be a little bit of a glutton for punishment to stick with it. EA definitely makes it not easy at points. So, and as far as I'm concerned, the gameplay changes, even though it's frustrating, even though it's not easy to put up 24 points anymore. I remember during league season last year, just as an example for how much things have changed. And I'm a decent player, not a great player, but during league season last year, I dropped one drive, and not too many conversions because the way the conversion system worked and because it wasn't a different set of counters and there was no randomness. It play was either countered or it wasn't. So you could test out a 2-point conversion play before you got to the end zone and see if it worked. And most of the time it worked. But I dropped one drive during league season for over the month that it was going. I think it was a month and a half. And during all that time, I dropped one drive because of an Emmett Smith fumble I required. That was it. That's a little ridiculous. I'm a good player, but I'm not that good. That was a little bit too easy. So they've made things more difficult in the way they did listen to the customer. So now we're getting what was asked for, and it seems like a lot of people don't like it. That's what it seems like to me. But at any rate, that's just my opinion. For people who make the decision to play this game based on promos or things like that, I know certain aspects of this game get very discouraging just because the way EA does things. It's discouraging at points. But what I found out pretty early when I started running a league, when I was basically, an admin and I was, me and Papa Raider were the most active admins in our league right when the original Tier 7 players, the 399 players, Hester, Rice, and Emmett Smith came out last year. And we saw a lot of people, and we saw what their character was really like. We saw a lot of people come in and say, are you guys grinding on Hester or do whatever? And they didn't get the answer they want and they would leave. Or people would come into our league and see where we were at in terms of progress for League Sevens, and it wasn't far enough as they like, and they would leave and they would go to the next league. And we had players that would get a given player and then they would leave right after that. So you see that a lot of people and how their attitude is about it. Somebody comes into our league, for example, if they did this year and they come into our league at number 253. It's a pretty decent league, 247, whichever number is right. And they come into our league and say if we were going for a tier 7 and they hang around and they get that player and then they leave immediately. A lot of these players that do that just hop from league to league or whatever, they're not very good players. They're not loyal to their leagues. They're not concerned about trying to compete and get better at the game. They just want the player. They want the swag. And then they do who knows what. Maybe they keep competing or maybe they don't. It's hard to say, but that's the type of players, a lot of players like that are out there. And I've noticed, no offense to anybody, but it's a lot of younger players are like that. They want, the instant gratification. They want the really good players. They don't want to work very hard for it. And then they just come in and go. And I don't want those kind of players in my league anyways. And I don't want people who kind of represent that way of thinking. And the only thing I could say and why I mention all this is because it is kind of similar to some people with how it's all about promos and nothing else matters. What about competition? What about trying to get better at the game, regardless of the stats of your players and your team, and regardless of whether they play up to their stats anyways? Whatever happened to that? And my message is still the same, but I do understand on the other hand that EA and their promos are frustrating, and I do understand this year and how it's different, and it's also frustrating. So that's it, guys. That's everything I want to say for right now. As more things come out, promos, I'll cover them. I'll do gameplay as well. Thanks for watching.